In this video, we're diving headfirst into 10 of the most controversial rises in poker history. These aren't just bad beats or fluke wins, they're full-blown scandals that shook the very soul of the game. You might think you know these stories, but today we're going deeper. In 2019, the poker world found itself glued to live-stream footage from a low-stakes cash game at Stone's Gambling Hall in Sacramento, California. At the center of the action was Mike Posell, an otherwise unremarkable player who had suddenly become unstoppable. He wasn't just winning, he was making plays that defied poker logic. Hero folds with the top pair, insane river calls with bottom pair, a win rate so outrageous, some players started calling him the Messiah. But one voice wasn't convinced. Veronica Brill, a commentator and fellow player, noticed something off. On a stream that September, Posell folded a strong hand in a spot where no regular player would ever do so. A move that, while bizarre, saved him from a major loss. On air, Brill muttered the words that would spark a firestorm. "It doesn't make sense. It's like he knows." Within days, she went public with her suspicions. The poker community exploded. Analysts like Joey Ingram and Doug Polk poured over dozens of hours of archived footage. The pattern was undeniable. Posell always seemed to know when to fold, when to call, and when to bluff. Not just sometimes, but nearly every time. Theories started to swirl. Was there a hidden phone in his lap? A micro device in his cap? Was someone in the production booth feeding him opponents' hole card data in real time? Stone's Gambling Hall initially denied any wrongdoing, but pressure mounted. By October, a group of 88 players filed a $30 million lawsuit against Posell and others, alleging a sophisticated cheating operation. Posell, for his part, claimed innocence. He said it was all just skill, intuition, and luck. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict was clear. Even after a California judge dismissed the lawsuit on a legal technicality, because gambling losses can't be recovered as damages, the poker community was livid. In a wild twist, Posell then filed a $330 million defamation suit against dozens of players, media outlets, and poker legends like Daniel Negreanu. That suit didn't last long. Faced with legal counters and a lack of proof, he quietly dropped it. To this day, Mike Posell has never been found guilty of cheating in a court of law, but in the eyes of poker players everywhere, he became the poster child for how technology can corrupt the integrity of the game. His name now lives in infamy, a chilling reminder that even in a game built on trust and reads, there's always a way to rig the deck. For a while, Ali Imsirovic was untouchable, a young Bosnian-American prodigy who bulldozed the high roller circuit with swagger and a seemingly perfect game. By the year 2021, he was crowned Global Poker Index Player of the Year and had racked up more than $18 million in live tournament earnings. But behind the rising star image, the poker elite had started whispering, and soon, those whispers became a roar. In April of 2022, high-stakes pro Alex Foxen dropped the bomb. Publicly accusing Ali of cheating, Foxen laid out a damning list of charges: real-time assistance software, known as RTA, which essentially solves poker hands during online play, multi-accounting to enter the same tournament under different names, and worst of all, live collusion and chip dumping with staked players. Foxen pointed to a specific hand caught on camera, Ali appearing to sneak a glance at Paul Fuhr's hole cards during a live final table. Whether it was instinct, accident, or something darker, it added fuel to the fire. Other pros piled on. Rumors spread that Imsirovic and a close-knit circle of players, including Jake Schindler, were quietly being blacklisted. And sure enough, both were barred from PokerGo Tour events due to what organizers called integrity concerns. For months, Ali vanished from the live scene. Then, in June of 2023, he returned, not to the felt, but to YouTube. In a 28-minute video, Imsirovic admitted to multi-accounting during the COVID lockdowns and ghosting other players' accounts online. He called it a desperate mistake driven by pressure, but he denied the more serious allegations, including cheating in live games or using RTA in 2022. The poker community wasn't impressed. Many saw the video as a half measure, part confession, part damage control. He showed remorse, but the trust was gone. The nickname Ali Cheat Sirovic spread like wildfire across forums and social media. Ali's rise had once seemed destined for greatness. Instead, it became a cautionary tale of talent corrupted by temptation. In an era where poker straddles the line between skill and technology, his fall from grace reminded everyone that integrity isn't optional, it's everything. Dan Bilzerian doesn't just play poker. According to him, he conquered it, amassing tens of millions of dollars while living a life that most players could only imagine. private jets, mega yachts, mountains of cash, bikini models, guns, Instagram followers by the millions. He called himself the king of Instagram, and he credited high-stakes poker as the engine behind it all. But many in the poker world didn't buy the fantasy. Bilzerian's rise to fame is one of poker's most polarizing stories, not because of what he did on the felt, but because of what he claimed. Yes, he had some credentials. He cashed in the 2008 World Series of Poker main event, finishing in the top 200. He played in some high-stakes Hollywood games, but there were no major tournament wins, no consistent presence at final tables. Yet Bilzerian insisted he once won $10.8 million in a single night. In another interview, he claimed to have cleared over $50 million in 1 year, but only against rich amateurs, never professionals. As scrutiny intensified, the numbers didn't add up. Bilzerian came from money. His father, Paul Bilzerian, was a corporate raider convicted of securities fraud, and Dan had access to a trust fund reportedly worth close to $96 million. Critics asked the obvious question, was he a poker genius or just another trust fund kid playing a part? The plot thickened with his business ventures. Ignite International, his publicly traded vaping and CBD company, reported losses of more than $50 million in 2019 alone. Lawsuits followed. A former company president claimed Bilzerian used corporate funds to bankroll his lifestyle, jet rentals, mansion parties, and all the excess Instagram worshipped him for. Then came the string of legal battles, a model suing him after he threw her off a roof during a photoshoot gone wrong, an arrest at Los Angeles International Airport over bomb-making materials, a nightclub brawl in Miami where he allegedly kicked a woman, one controversy after another, and somehow each added to his legend. Poker pros were less amused. Doug Polk dissected his career in videos, pointing out the complete absence of any traceable poker records that matched Bilzerian's claimed fortune. Many called him a fraud, a hype machine selling an illusion. When Bilzerian scored a poker site sponsorship deal, the reaction ranged from baffled to disgusted. Eventually, Bilzerian admitted what many suspected. Yes, there was a trust fund. Yes, he had lost a lot of it. But he also maintained that his poker wins were real, just undocumented. The nature of private games. His autobiography, The Setup, leaned fully into the myth. To this day, no one knows for sure how much of Bilzerian's empire was earned through poker. What's certain is this: Dan Bilzerian became the face of poker to millions who never watched a hand. And in doing so, he blurred the line between legend, lifestyle, and lie. A rise more controversial for what it represents than what it proves.
I want to live right now when I can do whatever the I want. Nobody tell me what to do.
David Chino Rem has always been a poker enigma, a player whose table presence was magnetic, whose talent was undeniable, and whose career was a roller coaster of success, scandal, and redemption. His rise began in the mid-2000s, but it was the 2008 World Series of Poker main event that put him on the map. Chino finished 7th and walked away with over $1.7 million. Charismatic and aggressive, he quickly became a fixture in televised events. He won not one, not two, but 3 World Poker Tour titles, a rare feat that placed him in elite company. But behind the glory, a darker pattern began to emerge. Whispers of unpaid debts and broken financial promises swirled around him. Despite repeated big scores, Chino had a habit of borrowing money from fellow players and not paying it back. Things came to a head in 2011 when he won the inaugural Epic Poker League event for a cool $1 million. Instead of celebration, the poker community erupted in frustration. Pros like Will Molson and Joseph Cheong came forward, accusing Chino of stiffing them on large sums. Molson said he mistakenly sent Chino $40,000 instead of $20 and never got the difference back. Cheong claimed he'd been scammed for $40,000 as well, painting Chino as someone who used charm to get loans he had no intention of repaying. The Epic Poker League, which prided itself on player integrity, put Reem on probation, demanding he clean up his debts if he wanted to remain. In a moment that symbolized both his shame and his effort to make things right, Chino reportedly used part of his tournament winnings to pay back some of those he owed, handing out cash after the final table like a man settling old scores. In interviews, Reem admitted to struggling with gambling beyond poker, sports betting, casino pits, and the fast money lifestyle. He would win big, fall into debt again, and then rely on friends or backers to climb out. The poker world coined a term for it, getting Chino'd, a warning to anyone who lent him money. But Chino didn't fade away. In 2019, he won the PokerStars PCA main event for $1.5 million. This time, he faced the cameras with a new tone, regret, responsibility, and a desire to change. Over time, many pros confirmed that Reem had quietly made amends. By 2023, he had earned more than $11 million in live tournament cashes and, more importantly, had regained some measure of community respect. Chino Reem's story is messy. It's not about cold cheating or headline-grabbing lawsuits. It's about a man battling his own flaws while trying to stay afloat in a world where trust is currency. His rise was controversial because it was never linear, a cycle of brilliance and broken promises, recovery and relapse. But through it all, he's still here. Maybe not spotless, but still grinding, still playing, and still proving that some reputations can be rebuilt one hand at a time. Phil Helmouth is one of the most decorated poker players in history, a record-setting 16 World Series of poker bracelets, a career that spans over 4 decades, and a mind for tournament poker that even his critics admit is nothing short of genius. But for all his trophies and triumphs, Helmouth's rise has never been clean. In fact, it's one of the most controversial because it was fueled as much by tantrums as talent. He's not just the most successful tournament player of all time, he's also the most polarizing. It all started in 1989 when a 24-year-old Helmouth stunned the poker world by defeating 2-time defending champion Johnny Chan in the World Series main event. It was a torch-passing moment, the arrival of a new era, but it didn't take long for Helmouth's now infamous persona to take shape. He didn't keep his emotions bottled up. When he lost a hand, the table heard about it, and when he won, he made sure you knew why you never should have challenged him in the first place. His insults became legendary. You called with that. I can't even spell poker. He called people idiots, lambasted their decisions, and regularly stormed away from the table mid-hand. One of his most notorious outbursts came during the 2021 World Series in a $10,000 7-card stud event. After losing a crucial pot, Helmouth launched into a 15-minute tirade filled with profanities and threats. He even muttered that he might burn this place down if he didn't win, a comment that, whether meant as a joke or not, made fellow players and fans visibly uncomfortable. And yet, through it all, Helmouth remained the face of the game. Sponsors lined up, fans cheered.
God damn it, what the f*** is going on here?
Television producers loved him. To many, he was the perfect villain, the wrestling heel of poker, complete with catchphrases, oversized sunglasses, and a fragile ego that could ignite at any moment. But his behavior raised serious questions. Did he get away with things others would be penalized for? Would a lesser-known player have been disqualified for the same tirades? As poker matured and the spotlight intensified, many felt that Helmouth's antics weren't just embarrassing, they were damaging the image of the game. Away from the table, Helmouth presents a different face. He writes self-help books, speaks about positivity, and shares stories of his own personal growth. That contradiction, brilliance, and belligerence has always defined him. Phil Helmouth's rise isn't controversial because he cheated or defrauded anyone. It's controversial because of how he conducted himself on the path to greatness. He's a reminder that talent doesn't always come with grace, and that even champions can test the patience of those who admire them. Love him or loathe him, the poker brat is forever part of the game's DNA, a player whose wins can't be denied and whose behavior can't be ignored. In the year 2006, Jaime Gold pulled off the unthinkable. He outlasted a record-breaking field of 8,773 players to win the World Series of Poker main event. The prize? A jaw-dropping $12 million, the largest first-place payout in poker history at the time. With his non-stop table talk, mind games, and aggressive style, Gold seemed like a breath of fresh air at first. But almost immediately, the shine wore off. Within weeks, Jaime Gold found himself at the center of a lawsuit that froze half of his winnings. A former TV producer, Crispin Leeser, claimed that he and Gold had agreed to split the main event prize if Leeser helped secure celebrities to play under the Bodog poker brand, the same brand that sponsored Gold's entry. Leeser even produced a voicemail from Jaime, left the night before the final table, saying, "There's no way you're not going to get half, it's your money." Once Gold won though, the payout never came. Leeser sued, the courts got involved, and suddenly, poker's newest world champion was being portrayed not as a hero, but as someone who reneged on a promise worth $6 million. The case eventually settled out of court, but the damage was done. Then came more lawsuits, like one from a Bodog consultant who claimed a piece of the prize pool. The world had barely gotten to know Jaime Gold, and already it seemed half of Los Angeles had a handout for a cut of his winnings. And that wasn't the end of it. Poker purists had long questioned Gold's table behavior during the main event. He routinely talked during hands, made vague promises to show cards, and sometimes even revealed information mid-play that, under stricter rules, would be considered angle shooting, essentially bending the rules for an advantage. At one point, he told an opponent, "I'll show you if you fold," and actually flipped over a card while the hand was still live. When the World Series implemented tougher rules on table talk in subsequent years, many pointed directly to Jaime Gold as the reason why. Then came the downturn. Unlike other main event champs, Gold never replicated his success. No major tournament wins, no return to the spotlight. Critics said his victory was a perfect storm. He ran hot, played loose, and faced a soft field. Some pros even called him the worst player to ever win the main event. Gold tried to parlay his fame into ambassador gigs and charity events, but even those efforts drew criticism. One event organizer accused his team of failing to deliver on promised donations. Though Gold denied any wrongdoing, in 2013, he quietly auctioned off his World Series bracelet for roughly $65,000. For many, that image, a champion selling the symbol of his greatest achievement, felt like the final chapter in a story that was never quite right. Jaime Gold's rise wasn't just controversial, it was chaotic. A fairy tale win followed by lawsuits, whispers of bad etiquette, and a vanishing act from poker's top tier. His story is a reminder that in poker, winning the biggest tournament in the world doesn't always mean you've earned the community's respect. Daniel Cates, better known as Jungle Man, carved his place in poker history as one of the most feared heads-up no-limit hold'em players on the planet. With his wild hair, introverted charm, and laser-sharp strategic mind, Jungle Man made millions playing online under the name Jungle Man 12. His rise was steep and swift, a rare prodigy who conquered the digital felt before transitioning to live success. But in 2020, Jungle Man's reputation took a serious hit. And this time, it had nothing to do with how well he played, but how he played and for whom. It all began when businessman and high-stakes recreational player Bill Perkins sent a cryptic tweet in May of that year. He hinted that a cheating scandal had taken place in private online games involving elite players, and that one particular pro's actions were worse than Posell. The internet exploded with speculation. Who was involved? What had happened? The name that eventually surfaced was shocking. Daniel Jungle Man Cates. Cates had allegedly been ghosting in private high-stakes online games, playing on someone else's account to give that player an unfair advantage. In this case, he was suspected of piloting the account of a lesser-known player named Cena, while facing off against big names like Perkins and Dan Bilzerian, all of whom believed they were competing against an amateur, not one of the best players in the world. Bilzerian, never one to stay quiet, accused Cates publicly and colourfully. The poker world watched as one of its golden boys found himself at the center of a full-blown integrity crisis. To his credit, Cates didn't deny it. In a rare moment of honesty for poker scandal history, Jungle Man issued a public apology. He admitted to ghosting in that game, expressed regret that Perkins was affected, and said he would take responsibility. But he also added a twist, that ghosting was common in those circles, and he was being unfairly singled out for behavior that others were also guilty of. The apology was met with mixed reactions. Some praised him for owning up, especially compared to others who deny and deflect. Others were less forgiving. In private games, where trust and reputation matter more than tournament trophies, ghosting is a fundamental breach of ethics. When players sit down thinking they're facing a certain skill level, only to find out they've been battling a pro in disguise, it's more than a trick, it's a con. Despite the scandal, Jungle Man's career didn't stall. In 2021 and 2022, he won back-to-back World Series of Poker Players Championship titles, arguably the toughest tournament in the world. He did so in style, dressing in elaborate costumes and maintaining his eccentric, endearing persona. But the ghosting incident left a permanent mark. It reminded the poker community that cheating isn't just about hidden cameras or card peeking, it's also about deception in identity. Who you say you are when you sit down at the table. For Jungle Man, the controversy didn't destroy his career, but it added a layer of complexity to his legacy. A genius of the game, yes, but also a cautionary tale of how even the best can bend the rules and get caught. Russ Hamilton was once a hero in the poker world. In 1994, he won the World Series of Poker main event, earning a place among the game's elite. But by the mid-2000s, his name would become synonymous with betrayal thanks to one of the most damaging cheating scandals in online poker history. the ultimate bet super user affair. At the time, online poker was booming. Millions of dollars were flowing through sites like PokerStars, Full Tilt, and Ultimate Bet. Hamilton, already a world champion, was working as a consultant for Ultimate Bet, helping build its brand. But behind the scenes, he was orchestrating something far more sinister. Between 2004 and 2008, players on Ultimate Bet began noticing something strange. Certain accounts were winning at impossible rates, making perfect calls, impossible folds, and consistently crushing games without breaking a sweat. Eventually, the poker community connected the dots. Someone was using a God mode software that allowed them to see their opponent's hole cards in real time. The resulting investigation revealed that the cheat had siphoned off more than $22 million from unsuspecting players, and the person at the center of it all, Russ Hamilton. Hamilton had used his inside access to the site to manipulate its software. He created multiple fake accounts and sat in on high-stakes games where his opponents didn't stand a chance. It was the digital equivalent of playing with X-ray vision, an edge so overwhelming it rendered skill meaningless. In 2008, the Kanawaki Gaming Commission confirmed the fraud, named Hamilton as the chief perpetrator, and banned him from all gaming jurisdictions under their control. Ultimate Bet attempted damage control, claiming he was a rogue actor. But then, in 2013, a leaked audio recording surfaced that made everything worse. In the tape, recorded during a private company meeting, Hamilton is heard admitting to the theft. Not only that, he sounded more concerned about protecting himself and avoiding legal consequences than making things right. "I did take this money," he says at one point. "I'm not trying to make it right." The coldness of that admission left the poker world stunned. Despite the magnitude of the scandal, Hamilton was never criminally charged. At the time, the legal framework around online poker was murky, and jurisdictional issues made prosecution nearly impossible. Instead, Hamilton quietly disappeared from the spotlight, effectively exiled from the game he once championed. The Ultimate Bet scandal forced the industry to grow up. Sites began implementing stronger security protocols, independent auditing, and better oversight. But the damage was already done. Trust in online poker had been shattered, and it would take years to recover. Russ Hamilton's rise wasn't just controversial, it was catastrophic. He had gone from world champion to super user villain, not through poor decisions or personality flaws, but through premeditated, systematic theft. His story remains the darkest chapter in poker history, a reminder that the real threat to the game doesn't always come from across the table, but sometimes from within. Some poker scandals unfold over months, others in a single hand. On September 29, 2022, a live-streamed game on Hustler Casino Live became the epicenter of a controversy so confusing, so polarizing, that the entire poker world stopped what it was doing to figure out one question. Did Robbie Jade Lou cheat Garrett Adelstein? Garrett was a fan favorite, a high-stakes pro known for fearless bluffs and impeccable reads. Robbie was a newcomer, invited to bring fresh energy to the show. The two collided in a hand that would spark endless debate. The board read 10 of hearts, 10 of clubs, 9 of clubs, 3 of hearts. Garrett held 8 of clubs and 7 of clubs, a monster draw with both a straight and flush possibility. Robbie had Jack of clubs and 4 of hearts, essentially nothing. Garrett shoved all in, applying maximum pressure. Robbie, after a short tank and some confusing table talk, called with Jack high. The river bricked. Robbie's Jack high beat Garrett's 8 high. The pot was worth $269,000. Garrett sat frozen. He looked at her, at the cards, and then back again. Something didn't add up. After leaving the table, Garrett confronted Robbie off camera. Moments later, she offered to give the money back, a gesture that many found bizarre. If she didn't cheat, why refund the pot? If she did, why stop there? Theories erupted online. Was Robbie wearing a hidden device? Was someone in the Hustler Casino control room feeding her whole card information? Did she misread her hand? Or was it simply the weirdest, worst call in poker history that happened to work out? Clips of the hand went viral. Poker personalities, journalists, and YouTubers analyzed every movement, from Robbie's blinking to a moment when a staff member was caught stealing $15,000 from her chip stack in a later hand. That staffer was fired and arrested, but his crime was unrelated to the hand in question. Still, the optics were ugly. Robbie denied all wrongdoing. She said she thought Garrett was bluffing and that her call, while confusing, wasn't based on cheating. She even took a lie detector test, which she passed, and gave multiple interviews defending herself. Garrett stood by his suspicions but said he wouldn't pursue further action. Hustler Casino Live conducted an extensive investigation, hiring cybersecurity experts and former law enforcement. After 2 months, they announced no evidence of cheating had been found, but they couldn't prove innocence either, only that no concrete proof existed. The poker world remains divided. Some insist no one calls with jack high unless they know something. Others argue that weird plays happen, especially from newer players under pressure. What's clear is that this hand exposed a fault line in modern poker. In an age of RFID technology, live streams, and real-time commentary, the possibility of cheating feels more real than ever. Whether Robbie was guilty or not, the incident forced stream operators to tighten security, banning devices at the table, adding metal detectors, and improving oversight. The Garrett vs. Robbie hand is more than a mystery. It's a modern parable. It reminded everyone that in poker, as in life, perception often becomes reality. And when the cards don't make sense, suspicion fills the void. If poker had its own stock market, Full Tilt Poker would have been the hottest brand of the mid-2000s. It wasn't just a site, it was a movement. With its sleek red and black design, legendary Play with the Pros slogan, and a cast of poker's biggest stars, Full Tilt made online poker look cool, elite, and trustworthy. What fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, the house of cards was already crumbling. On April the 15th, 2011, a day now known as Black Friday in poker circles, the US Department of Justice unsealed indictments against the top online poker sites. Among them was Full Tilt Poker. At first, the news was about legality, about the grey area of online gambling in the US, but soon, the real scandal emerged. Full Tilt didn't just break the rules, they broke the trust of millions. Player balances were frozen overnight. Many assumed their money was safe, but the truth came out fast and brutal. Full Tilt didn't have the money, not even close. While PokerStars had carefully segregated player funds from operating capital, Full Tilt had commingled the two. Player deposits were used to pay operational expenses, and more damningly, to line the pockets of its owners, poker icons like Howard Lederer, Chris Ferguson, and CEO Ray Bitar. The numbers were staggering. Roughly $360 million owed to players, around $440 million in payments, and distributions made to Full Tilt's inner circle. The US government labeled it a global Ponzi scheme. To players, the betrayal was personal. These weren't faceless executives in suits. They were their heroes, men who appeared on TV, who sold the dream of poker to millions. Howard Lederer was the professor, a cerebral tactician. Chris Ferguson was a main event champ with a cowboy hat and a calm demeanor. Now, both were being accused of participating in one of the largest frauds in poker history. Reactions were swift. Full Tilt lost its license, its offices shut down, its user base fled, and its owners, once revered, became pariahs. Ferguson and Lederer disappeared from public life. Ray Bitar eventually surrendered to authorities, pled guilty, and avoided prison due to a serious heart condition. No one served significant time. To many players, that was the final insult. For a while, it looked like thousands of players would never see their money again. Then came an unlikely savior, PokerStars. In a government-brokered deal, PokerStars agreed to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to settle charges and acquire Full Tilt's assets. They used those funds to pay back non-US players quickly and helped launch a lengthy remission process for US victims. The poker economy slowly recovered, but the scars remained. For years, Ferguson and Lederer were booed when they returned to live events. When Ferguson quietly won World Series Player of the Year in 2017, the poker world was stunned. Not by his performance, but by how little remorse he showed. Full Tilt's collapse wasn't just about money. It was about trust, in brands, in players, and in the poker dream. Its rise had been driven by brilliance and charisma. Its fall exposed greed, mismanagement, and the dangers of self-policing in a multi-billion-dollar industry. In the end, Full Tilt Poker became the ultimate cautionary tale. A brand built on player loyalty, undone by the very faces that made it famous. Want more controversial topics? Check here to see how AI has ruined poker.